What is good, viewers? My name is BBK Dragoon, and welcome to a replay review. V4 Team Slayer jumping on board with KingJoshOps, who's on the red team. We're playing on Onyx, which is the midship remake. If you played Halo 2, it's a classic map. It's very good, and I'm so excited for this replay review. Hold on real quick. I do want to make a point. You don't rush the overshield off the start of the game. This is a problem. Start integrating this into your play immediately. The team that gets the OS is immediately going to gain the momentum, and the beginning of the game is like the opening of a concert. It sets the tone for the rest of the match, alright? This next kill right here, I don't even want to go over. I could go into a lot of complex things about your map control, or your lack of map control, your lack of awareness of where your teammates are. But I don't want to talk about complex things, Mr. JoshOps, because your gameplay I'm so excited to look at today because a lot of viewers, I'm sure, and a lot of players have issues like this. I'm going to try my best to boil this down to the simplest critiques that you can implement into your gameplay immediately, and I guarantee this is one of those things where I fully feel confident that if you stop pushing towards people, running straight towards them in a gunfight, you're going to see a lot more success. If you start relying less on the melee for your kills and more on your gun, you're going to do much better. And if you start eliminating jumping from your play, okay, excessive jumping, and I'll explain all these in greater detail. So in this game, I've seen this in Reach, I've seen this in Halo 3, a lot of players when they get in gunfights, shoot the enemy, and as they're shooting the enemy, push directly towards them in a straight line. Quick side note, if you're not sure what map control is, this is the easiest map to talk about. Blue tower, red tower, those are your positions you want to occupy and you want to hold. Why? Lots of sight lines, controls a lot of lanes of traffic, and you have height, which means you have the ability to escape if you're going to die. Very easy. So controlling those two towers, very important. It was pink and purple back in the day. Anyway, when you push at somebody in a straight line, instead of strafing, instead of using edges for cover, and by pushing at people in every fight trying to get a melee, you end up in situations like this, where you're on their 60-yard line with two guys in your face grilling you. The other challenge in not strafing is this, Mr. JoshOps. When you run at somebody in a straight line, and they pull their crosshairs onto you and start shooting at you, what happens? Well, they never have to move their crosshairs again. They just pull the trigger 3 more times and you're dead. By strafing, you force your opponent to move their crosshair to try and track with you. You become a much harder target to hit. And as you run and you get closer and closer and closer, you're a bigger target. So try really hard. This is simple, but try really hard to start strafing in your gunfights. I want to point out this situation in particular. Instead of using the edge for cover, you push directly forward. Still pushing directly forward to try and get a melee off. Yes, the melee is important, but really the only time you want to get the melee is when they come into your zone. If they're looking at you and you try and get into their zone for a melee, they're going to have no trouble cleaning you up because they're predicting your movement. By using a strafe, you're forcing a gunfight, which is Halo. That is Halo in a nutshell. So really try. I guarantee you, if you start strafing more, instead of pushing directly at everybody who's within, you know, mid-range to close range to try and get that melee, you're going to do better. I promise. It'll be like overnight. Now, granted, you're going to have to work on a strafe, and that's going to take time. But by investing in that style of play, you're going to do much better in the long run. Again, pushing. If you would have just stayed on the edge and strafed, you would have been able to stay alive a little bit longer to get some shots in that other guy, and maybe even have won the fight since your teammate was joining in with you there. The other thing I want to point out real quick, too, is the jump. You jump too much. And by this I mean, every time you're in a gunfight does not mean you should jump. What is the danger in jumping, you may be asking? Doesn't he have to change where his crosshair is at? Yeah. But here's the danger. A good player will predict your movement when you're jumping. Can you switch directions in the air? And the answer is overwhelmingly no, you cannot. If you watch a pro player, let's take Walshy, when he was streaming Halo 4, he never, ever jumped unless he needed to. And the reason being is when you're planted on the ground, you can switch directions. You can get around corners. When you jump, you are committing to that direction. And a good player, if they have the sniper or if they have a good BR, will predict that jump and tear you apart while you are in the air. So by jumping less, you're going to see a lot more success. The last thing I really want to add as this gameplay is sort of continuing, you have to learn to rely less on the melee. In Halo 4, the melee is useful, but it's not like previous Halo games. There is sprint in this game. in Reach and in Halo 4, since they both have sprint, melee it's a much different tool. It's more used when somebody comes into your zone. Again, pushing directly at this guy for the melee, focusing so hard on the melee that you go for the double melee, which works at certain levels of play, but ultimately will get you killed more often than not. So what I want, your mission, Mr. JoshOps, because I'm so thankful you've sent this replay in. It's like, I've seen this theme repeated in many replays, and I don't want you to think at all that I'm being a jerk or I'm being mean. If you implement these simple things, your play will increase dramatically. You will notice things are much easier, you'll be getting more kills, and you'll start playing the game in a different way. You'll start looking for edges on cover. You'll then start understanding why map control is important and how to use power positions and height to your advantage. From there, you'll be able to form the basis of your Halo playstyle. And Midship, Onyx, is a really great map to talk about because there are edges, but it's a pretty simple map. You have 2 stories, it's a ring on the outside with 1 route in between. In this situation, you're jumping, pushing forward for the melee. So I'm just going to leave you with super simplistic things that I think will overnight change your games. So strafe more. Stop pushing at people in a straight line. Stop relying on the melee. And try and jump less. From there, if you wanted some further critiques, work on your map control. Try to control the left and right towers. Or try and think on what maps. Where are the power positions? Why do I need the height control? And I think you'll see improvements right away. We'll check this out in the bullet points, sir. Thank you for that replay. First of all, I want to say a big thanks to KingJoshOps for sending us this gameplay. It demonstrated a lot of techniques and simple concepts that I think can be put into all of our games. Every level, even if you're a freaking pro. You need to understand why jumping is dangerous, relying on a melee is dangerous, and running at people in a straight line in each gunfight is dangerous. So strafe more, Mr. JoshOps. This seems easy and simple, and it will be easy to integrate. It'll take a long time to master. But by doing this, you start controlling the opponent's movement. And I want you to watch and see how many opponents are actually going to push at you and at what advantage you're going to be in as you predict their movement. As you're strafing left and right and you're fighting them, you see them running at you, you're going to be like, this is going to be the easiest kill in the world. I'll just 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that guy's having trouble keeping his crosshairs on you as you're going back left and right. Also, try and jump less. Why? When you're in the air, you can't strafe. It's easy for a good player to predict your movement and thus place his crosshairs where he needs to kill you. Finally, try and cut down on the melees. Use those melees when it's effective, but when it's not effective, it's dangerous. If you whiff a melee, that animation takes a lot of frames where you can't fire your weapon. So try and use it a little bit more sparingly. Let me know, too, if these tips help, because I think this is maybe one of the simplest replay reviews in terms of concepts I've ever done. But as far as effectiveness and like how far you can take these concepts, I think it has maybe the most potential. Anyway, thanks for the replay. You guys have a good rest of your day. I'm BBK Dragoon. I will see you later this week, and peace.